I am delighted to welcome Joe Clifford, the fantastic executive director of the Lebanon Opera House. A few things you might not know about Joe. Joe joined the Opera House as executive director back in March of 2017, and his time at Lebanon Opera House has been marked by collaborative efforts, facilities improvements, an increased focus on area arts organizations, efforts to diversify and broaden professional offerings, and improving access and opportunities to participate in the arts through his LOH on Location series. Joe resides in Plainfield, New Hampshire with his wife and two sons, and some of you may know him from his time at the Hopkins Center for the Arts, leading their education and outreach programs, and then as the audience engagement director. Joe has served the Upper Valley's cultural scene through participation and active leadership with so many creative networks, including University of New Hampshire's Leadership Learning Exchange for Equity, the City of Lebanon's Art and Culture Task Force, the Culture Commission, the Leadership Upper Valley Program, and on and on. I bet you didn't even know we had so many incredible arts organizations here. He holds a BA in Communications and Public Relations from Seton Hall in New Jersey and completed a 2-year fellowship with the Arts Leadership Program at USC. So one of the things that Joe says in his bio is that he is a cultural matchmaker, and we're excited to talk about that. Welcome to Spark, Joe. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Amanda. That's a great introduction.
Well, you've done a lot, man. So I love to start off our conversation just by asking you specifically what the word culture means to you and what it does for us as human beings and communities.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Arts and culture are always paired together. And, for me, I think the arts provide insight into various cultures, and that it can be, where you're from, your neighborhood, your personal history, your family history. It's an insight into a particular place and a particular time. I think the arts and culture are really, really important for me personally. And, having spent so many years at the Hopkins Center at Dartmouth, my worldview expanded 20-fold all through the arts. And I was really fortunate to be able to work directly with artists, many from all around the world, really gaining those insights into what it means to be a creative person. And just seeing things on stage that I had never even knew to pursue, actually. And that's one of the fun things about the work we do, right, is to be able to find those discoveries and share them with people. And that idea of cultural matchmaking, I think, really comes from that idea that, if we sat down and talked long enough, I can point you toward something that's really going to be life-changing in terms of the arts that you didn't even know you needed in your life. So it's just something that really gets me excited about the work we do, and is truly something I really missed in the past year with our COVID intermission. It's those moments of human connection. And to me, that really is what arts and culture are all about.
Yeah, I love that idea of cultural matchmaking, because when I first read it, I immediately assumed that you were talking about how you create collaborations between different arts organizations. And then I was like, oh, and it's also about the artist and audience experience and matchmaking in that way. Can you talk just for a second about the other side of it, though, the collaborative side, especially as it relates to Lebanon Opera House and how many arts organizations you actually are home to here in the Upper Valley?
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm most proud of with our work at LOH, is really serving as the home stage for upwards of a dozen Upper Valley arts groups who really don't have a home stage of their own. So we're more than happy to throw open our doors and welcome them. But I love finding those ways of connecting an artist that I might be presenting, a national touring artist that might come through town, and can we carve out some time for them to, say, work with the Upper Valley Music Center and lead workshops and seminars. So trying to infuse the work that I'm trying to accomplish and the voices that I'd like for the Upper Valley to hear into work that our partners are really already doing and that they do very well. So again, the Upper Valley Music Center is a good example where they occupy a very specific lane, which is music education, right? But we have access to this national and international network of artists who we're trying to attract to the Upper Valley and to Lebanon in particular. And so if I can find ways to supplement the work they're already doing and add to the education of their students and faculty, I'm more than happy to do it. So I'm always listening for those ideas for how we can partner. But it really, it's a two-way conversation, right? I'm really interested in hearing what people are interested in, what need is not being filled, and how might LOH step in and do that? Because I recognize we're in a certain position of power given the size of the organization and the administrative bandwidth that we have. So yeah, that is part of the matchmaking piece of it. And then again, the other part, because I've been in marketing for so long, it's that idea of, connecting the patron with the art on stage. And when it really clicks on both sides of that, it gets me really excited.
Yeah. And you've got such an interesting format because you're working with professional artists that are coming in, that you're presenting touring groups and you're presenting professional groups. And then also the other side of it is the non-professional, the amateur groups that come in. So how do you kind of play that balance in terms of how you serve the community with what you offer on your stage?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the way that we build our season really starts with the needs of the community organizations first. So many of them have been with LOH for years, and so they've got their slots in the year identified. And then we layer on top of that the needs of the Lebanon School District. So we're home to the instrumental and choral and theater performances, kind of the big stage moments for the kids. And then on top of that, I look for the opportunities in the schedule where we can do some presenting of touring artists. So that's sort of the layer of how the calendar comes together. But I really look for complementary options. So, and I also want to be sure that we're not overstepping in an area where someone locally might occupy space. And then just, again, trying to find artists that really can bring a new and interesting voice to our community. And one of the things I've always admired about the Upper Valley, and especially the relationship between the HOP and LOH, is that organizations of our size can operate and really thrive just a few miles apart because we've sort of identified our niches, and if you take it all in total, the Upper Valley has such a really amazing breadth of experiences, but a lot of it's based on that collegiality, right? The arts organizations work together, not against each other.
Yeah, and all ships rise. So speaking of some of those arts organizations, you mentioned that there's 12 area organizations that work with the HOP, and you mentioned Upper Valley Music Center. What are a couple of the other main arts partners that you work with at LOH?
Sure. Opera North is another one that's been with us for a really long time. North Country Community Theater, City Center Ballet, which is based in Lebanon, North Country Chordsmen, the barbershop style singing group. We have our newest members are the Revels North, of course. They presented their Christmas Revels show for the first time with us in 2019. Unfortunately, we're derailed because of COVID last year. But so it's just lots of different types of organizations, both big and small, but all who are really creating work in our community with our neighbors and friends. So it's exciting stuff.
It's super exciting. And I'm curious because I think I admire it so much. Lebanon Opera House has been around for close to 100 years, and as you and I have talked about a lot, its original charter was to be exactly what it serves as: this place, this community home for the arts, but also a professional touring house and an education center. So the visionaries of close to 100 years ago that created that space, you are now creating the future for the next 100 years. And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about what your hopes and dreams are for the future of Lebanon Opera House and the arts in the Upper Valley.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was really cool to take over this position because I basically inherited a building, and the weight of that really sat with me because I'm just the next steward of this really amazing space. That building is going to outlast all of us, and it's 97 years old. We're going to be 100 in 2024, and so there's lots of thinking and lots of planning around what is the kind of hill we want to climb as we approach our 100th anniversary. And again, like you said, I think back to the early 1920s when people sat around and said, we're going to design Lebanon City Hall, and what we're going to do is allocate a lot of square footage to the arts, smack in the middle of the building. I mean, people must have thought they were insane. But the idea, I think, was really to serve as a gathering place, right? And we've seen that over the years as a vaudeville house, a movie hall, as a home for the high school musicals, and now as a year-round presenting organization. Those folks in 1920 had some really smart ideas about the way to infuse the arts and community building directly in the center of the city's government. So it's, it doesn't escape me that it is a real honor to be in charge of that facility and that history. And so we are just trying to think about the future. And again, I continue to come back to that idea of unmet needs. I've been in the Upper Valley for over 20 years, and I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen it too, Amanda, the interests in the arts have expanded tenfold, right?
Yeah.
I don't see it slowing down. Even despite COVID, I think we're going to get through this and there's going to be heightened demand. So I'm looking for those opportunities where LOH can really expand its footprint and just better serve the arts ecosystem of 2021 and beyond, right? It's this shifting thing. And we're in an organization where we can make change and we can change along with it. So I'm just trying to capture that energy and really think about the future and what it means to be an artist creating now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think it's brilliant and exciting. I really do. It's interesting. I love that you use the term COVID intermission, and taking that pause to really advance the future, your future dreams is so exciting. So I can't wait to hear more about that, and we'll have you back on to hear about that. But first, what do you think is the most fun part of your job?
I think this is going to sound crazy, but I think because I put my marketing hat on so often, when I promote a show and it actually delivers on those promises, I love that. Because so much of marketing is hyperbole and this, do not miss this event. But when you've connected an audience with a show and it lives up to that expectation, you can just feel it in the room.
Yeah.
People weren't hoodwinked into coming to this performance. It was an intentional match and it really, really worked for them. And then I would also just say, like, those moments before showtime, when doors have opened, people are arriving, and at LOH, everyone is, waving and hugging across the aisles, and just that you feel that moment of it literally starts to build in front of you, that there is this community and people know each other and they're happy to see one another. And this is all before anything really interesting has even happened on stage. That's the moment. And it's also a relief just being in this work where you're like, okay, the artist is here, the audience is showing up, everything looks okay, we're going to start the show. And it's just that moment of release. And then just sitting back and watching that experience, because I know that I helped make it possible.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that there's nothing more you can do in that moment.
It's too late.
What is just one of your favorite stories? You mentioned, that when the show actually lives up to the expectations for you, what was one example of when that happened?
That's a great question. One of my most favorite shows in recent years was, and this is another example that's a little off beaten path, but the guitarist John Five, he is basically known as a heavy metal musician, but is this amazing virtuosic guitar player. I've been a big fan of his for years, and I took a chance on presenting him. He plays in a trio format, all instrumental, very theatrical. He's a big horror movie fan, et cetera. And this is a show that I wasn't quite sure how it would land with our Upper Valley audiences, but I have to say that it was beautiful. It was fantastic. Everyone that was there was super appreciative. And again, it was, I think, a group of audience members that are underserved, and they found each other. And so personally, I was, giddy about this artist, and then the fact that it worked really well, that was great for me.
Okay, so my last question, Joe, is as somebody who is completely immersed in the arts and really across all kinds of arts, dance, music, film, theater, all of it, what do you do, or what's your favorite thing when you're not at work? Do you do with your family to bring culture into your lives? Do you read? Do you cook together? What do you like to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I didn't grow up as a reader, but I've found, in the past, I would say 20 years or so, like a real love for pleasure reading. And it's usually just kind of throwaway things like, murder mysteries or whatever. But also I love movies. And that's one of the things I really am missing with COVID is just I'm the kind of person that puts a movie release date on my calendar, and just looking forward to that moment and going to the theater and having that experience, and also not producing that event. You're just there as a civilian. So I love watching movies. And I think, it's in my family anyway, trying to find the common ground for what we can take in together in terms of culture and arts, because somehow my kids did not pick up the same taste as mine. But
just wait for them. They'll get there.
Yeah, so a lot of movie watching and reading is sort of where I spend a lot of my time.
Awesome. So what else would you love Upper Valley audiences to know about Lebanon Opera House, or just the arts and culture community here in the Upper Valley?
Well, I think, with LOH, we have, like most of our colleagues, have pivoted to online programming. So it's a good experiment right now. I think, we're finding audiences well beyond the boundaries of the Upper Valley. We have another 4 free house concerts coming up. I would encourage people to take a look at our website and check those out. So that's a really important message, is that LOH is still doing the work. We're really desperate and eager to get back to the in-person moments. And then the other thing I just would put a plug in for, which you mentioned in passing, is Lebanon's Arts and Culture Commission. I was fortunate to be part of the task force that eventually led to the formation of the commission. So now we have seated within Lebanon city government a commission that is looking at the work of the city through the lens of the arts. And that, to me, is a huge, huge bonus. So if anyone is interested in talking about that model, feel free to reach out. I would love to talk about the work we're doing. Really encouraging, public art and just a celebration of your kind of homegrown artistic talent, and really how to leverage that in a way that makes your town or city more marketable, more livable. It feels like I'm at the grown-up table, and it's kind of a fun thing, So I'm excited about that work as well. But the arts are alive and well. It's happening 24/7 every day in the Upper Valley. And don't be afraid to look around and just find some new experience, especially now when it's online. You don't have to leave your house. A lot of it's free and accessible. So dig in.
Amazing. Joe, as always, I just love talking to you. I so admire the work that you're doing and you as a human being, and I'm grateful for your time. Thanks for being a guest on Spark.
My pleasure, Amanda. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So you've been watching Spark, the Upper Valley's new arts and culture program.